from the studio in the, no wait, not the studio, from right outside the empty warehouse and distribution facility that is maybe about to become a solar panel manufacturing plant at the very north end of Fort Mill, South Carolina, in the shadow of Charlotte, the buckle of the Bible Belt, the foot of Mount Belzoni, which I can see from here, but actually see Carowinds. That's Carowinds. This is the York County Democratic Party YouTube show and podcast. We call it YCDP TV. I'm going back to the studio. It's hot out here.
This is episode 14. It's Always Sunny in Fort Mill. Yes, another enigmatic show title that will make you say, I don't get it. Even after I explain what it's all about in a couple of minutes. That's a me problem. Don't worry about it. And you're seeing some chroma key bleed through the words, the green in my shirt. I didn't think about that when I grabbed the shirt to go record the intro. So, oh well, don't worry about it. It seems like the national news has been using up all the oxygen, all the political oxygen these days. You know, it's got my attention. I'm watching MSNBC all the time. I don't know about you. But there is political life going on still here in York County. So I got a little bit of that in this show. Get a little bit of that. Got a lot of that here in this show. Did you enjoy the series of shorts on the YCDP YouTube channel, YCDP TV? Those are the quickies that I made. They were from the first ever York County GOP meetings that have been broadcast on YouTube. Good to see those guys just being themselves. And wherever did they get the idea of making a YouTube channel? I don't know. Well, you may already know this, but I was interested to learn that there is an internal fight going on in the South Carolina GOP for control of the Republican Party. And it's playing out in some of the county party organizations. It's in between, I guess you could call them the moderate Republicans and the MAGA crowd, the crowd that's adopting the title America First. Check out this picture. Do they know? Do they care that the America First name was first used by an ultra-right, white supremacist, isolationist, pro-German group before World War II? I found this out from a Rachel Maddow podcast. Anyway, York County is one of the few counties in the state where the MAGAs have taken firm control. And as one of those YouTube shorts that I made explained, no RINOs need apply. Let me take a minute to play that.
I'd like to start by congratulating everybody in here. It sounds like, 2 years ago at your reorganization and convention, you probably had about 10% of America First patriots. And what you guys have now is something like 70%. I'm kind of thinking it's like 100% in this room.
Republican. RINOs, let me say. Excuse me. So we're recording this, and I got to watch myself.
No RINOs need apply. Okay, some news from the library front. Last month at the county council, Watts Huckabee said that he expected that future library board of trustees appointments would match the values of the county board members for the district they were being appointed to.
Our role is to appoint members to boards. And when you appoint members to boards, they're going to probably closely align with your view.
So that seems to be happening. That they've been jiggering around with the library board because the board wasn't going along with what the county council wanted them to do. So at the August 21st meeting, from my perspective here a couple of days ago, Darlene Love, one of the council members, made a quick announcement about committee recommendations to fill the now vacant seats, 3 of them on the library board. Here's her announcement.
The York County Library Board, the District 2 vacant seat, we recommend Susan Pining. The vacant District 5 seat, Timothy Steele. The vacant District 7 seat, Dennis Getter.
All right, our YCDP TV research team, the deep investigative team we've got here, really, it's just me. We're checking out those names. And so far, it appears that some of them have some pretty deep connections with the Republican Party, pretty deep conservative ties here in York County, and little to perhaps no experience with libraries, your basic political appointments. So yes, it looks like the council's long game of adding political influence to the library board is happening. It's going to be a while before there's a library board meeting with those people on it and they decide to move some books about sexual identity and orientation and gender identity and stuff like that from the children's section to the adult sections, what I'm all about. Okay, watch for that to happen. And votes in the library board could take a couple of months. We'll let you know. Okay, I got a fun personal item. A couple weeks ago, my wife Cindy and I took a trip to Washington, D.C. to do some touristing. Saw lots of museums, took a very brief tour of the Capitol. We were denied a tour of the White House. That's what the email said when we requested that tour. It said, our request was denied. Ralph Norman, was that you? Well, one of the more interesting stops that we had was the Supreme Court. It was not in session. This was after the June when everything was done. This was now beginning of August. So we got to sit in on a lecture that was held right there in the courtroom where all the judges are, where the thing really happens. We weren't allowed to take pictures inside, but I was able to take this selfie from just outside the door, and you can see through the door and a couple of the chairs and stuff. It's interesting that pictures were prohibited. They got this Rule 53, that says the court must not permit the taking of photographs in the courtroom during judicial proceedings or the broadcasting of judicial proceedings from the courtroom. Okay, I couldn't find any written rules about pictures taken when the court was not in session. Nothing says you can't take pictures when the court is not in session, except the guys with the guns standing outside the door saying, no pictures. Many times they say, no pictures. Okay, so those guys had the guns, so I didn't take any pictures inside. The lecture, though, was more of a tour guide type of review of the court and about the building. So they talked a little bit about how the court works and then a lot about the history of the building. It's been around for a long time. It was all, very by the book type tour guide stuff, but it was interesting. And then the guy doing the lecture asked if we had any questions. Big mistake. Mr. Wise Guy here noted that the lecture didn't mention anything about the court's use of the emergency docket. It's also called the Shadow Docket by some of those troublesome reporters who cover the court. So I asked. Our lecturer noted that, yes, there were sometimes issues that require an urgent decision by the court, issues that can't wait for the fairly ponderous regular session, which is true, or it was true. It used to be rare, was often a request that the court stay a lower court ruling while it could go through the appeals process. I mean, the Supreme Court is mostly an appellate court. It's the highest appellate court. Not always, though. I'm showing my court knowledge. Recently, though, far more appeals are being handled through the Shadow Docket, and decisions of more consequence are being handed down with no oral arguments and no written opinions. Not seeing what's going on. So if you want to know more about that, go to Google and search the name Shadow Docket and look for a really good article from those commies over at NPR. They'll tell you all about the Shadow Docket thing. Oh, and our expert lecturer, he had never heard of the term Shadow Docket, or at least that's what he said. Okay, Mr. Wise Guy here chose not to embarrass him any further about that because, the guys with guns. All right, let's get to the big story for the show. County Council meeting, August 21st, 2023. Last month, that library board issue brought in an overflow crowd that filled up the gallery they had to open a couple of rooms upstairs for more people to watch. This month, there were 2 local issues that brought those passionate type activists, not those same ones, but they brought passionate activists and overflow crowds. It used to be nobody showed up at the county council meetings. I mean, that was empty. You know, hello. And when they had their public speaking points, 1 or 2 people might have said something, sometimes maybe nobody. It's not that way now. Now, neither of these issues that came up were a culture war kind of issue. So we're not doing culture wars on this show. It was everything was not nonpartisan, not bipartisan, just not really partisan. So, okay, you can thank me later. The first issue was, we're talking pure county council business here. The first issue was widening Highway 557, piece of road just west of Lake Wiley, heading out to the western part of York County. That project, widening the road, had been in limbo for years, as I understand it. I'm not an expert on this issue. It was approved by the council at this meeting. Okay, so spoiler alert, they said, finally, go for it. There were activists on both sides that filled up most of the 15 slots of the public forum's comments. Most of the speakers actually supported widening the road, but when I go play some video of the other issue that I'm going to be talking about, you're going to see a bunch of folks with green T-shirts that really wouldn't have worked with my chroma key here. You can see my floating heads in the audience. Green T-shirts that say "Save the Pond" in the gallery. And if you're scratching your head saying, what is all that about? It's about this road widening issue. There's a pond near the road that widening the road may affect. Evidently, it's sorry, guys, in the Lake Wiley area, I don't know anything about this issue. If you want to do a show about it, give me a call. Anyway, apparently widening the road is going to affect this pond, and it's been a significant pond. So anyway, that's the other issue. And you're going to see those green T-shirts. Save the pond. I'm not going to go into that anymore on this show, but if you want to see how it played out, you can watch the YouTube video of the County Council meeting for August 25th. It's on the County Council's YouTube channel, and it's going to be daunting because the video is over 5 hours long. This was a long meeting. All right, the other controversy, the one that I'm going to spend the rest of the time on this show talking about is, you ready for this? Approval of a tax incentive for a solar panel manufacturing plant in the unincorporated part of the county north of Fort Mill. Doesn't that sound exciting? Well, wait, it gets better, a little. And that's where the title comes in. It's always sunny in Fort Mill. Because, well, some news reports said this is going to be about a solar farm to be built in Fort Mill. You may have seen those as you go driving in the country, just hundreds and hundreds of solar panels out there in fields. No, it's not going to be a solar farm. It's going to be a plant that makes the panels and not for solar farms. We'll talk about that in a second. But, always sunny, that would be good for a solar farm. So always sunny in Fort Mill. Never mind. The plant is owned by a company called Silfab, and this is what the plant would look like here on Google Maps. The building already exists. It used to be, and is now, an unoccupied former distribution warehouse. So that's what all the bays here are for trucks. So it used to be a former distribution warehouse. That's not what it's going to be, and they're not going to use all those bays. So things are going to be different as Silfab retrofits it for their solar manufacturing. Silfab is a Canadian company. They make solar panels mostly for residential use, so not the giant ones that you see out there in the land when they do a solar farm. These are the ones that you would see on rooftops, maybe your rooftop. They power the individual houses. They get you off the grid. So once again, no solar farm, unless you consider, a whole neighborhood full of houses that have these solar panels on their roofs to be a solar farm. Nobody said maybe they'll give a discount to people in Fort Mill. Maybe. Our HOA here in my neighborhood, which is about 1.5 miles from this plant, no solar panels. I don't know if they can get away with saying that, but they do. The official business before the council, I don't want to tell you this because you're going to go away. The official business before the council was only approval of what is called a fee. Here we go. Fee in lieu of tax and incentive agreement. Oh, I'm already bored. I'll explain that in a minute. But most of the very long discussion was about the plant itself. On one side, weighing it at 125 pounds. On one side, neighbors concerned about safety, traffic, and air quality. On the other side, company representatives, business and civic leaders all talking about jobs and revenue and promising safety and traffic mitigation and air and water quality. More exciting than a tax thing, but we're still only voting on the tax thing. But that's not what they talked about for most of the meeting. This was the second reading of the ordinance approving the tax plan. And spoiler alert, it passed the second reading on a very close vote, 4-3. The first reading was way back in March 6th at the county council. The name Silfab wasn't even mentioned at that time. Back then it was called Project Mountie, maybe because that's a Canadian company. I don't know. There were 8 people there that were heads up enough to speak in opposition to that plant at the public forum during that meeting back in March. So, and if you want to see those people talk, I'm not putting them on here. This is already way too long. But you can go back and look at the March 6th meeting of the county council and see what those very heads up people said. That the word had evidently leaked out. The first reading vote came in at 5-2 in favor. So first reading, 5-2. Second reading, 4-3. So they lost one. I'll tell you about that in a bit. So in a minute, I'm going to play some very condensed video of the people who spoke at this meeting, the August meeting. The people who spoke in opposition to the plant and the people who spoke in support of the plant, and then the county council members. It's going to add up to about 35 minutes, I think. So go pop some popcorn. The council members, of course, spoke on both sides, opposition and support, because, the 4-3 vote. It's still in favor. They lost one vote, as I said. Darlene Love changed her position. Now, at the meeting, it took almost 3 hours. So as I said, I've cut it down to 35 minutes. Still kind of long. Did you get the popcorn? Okay, good. But I think handing you your serving of broadcast broccoli here, I think maybe it's important to see how people handle this sort of thing. So we'll get to that in just a second. But what is a fee in lieu of tax agreement? Oh, I can feel the headaches coming on right now. I spent about a half hour with Google trying to understand it with partial success. Normally, a company pays property taxes. For a big business, that can be a lot of money. A business can ask to pay a fixed fee based on the value of the property instead of the assessed property taxes. I don't know how, but this can save them a lot of money, but there are conditions. They've got to invest millions of dollars over a specified number of years. Starts at $2.5 million and up. The more millions you allocate, the longer you have to actually put that money in. Almost sounds like I know what I'm talking about here, doesn't it? But best I can tell, we're not talking about real estate. We're talking about equipment. I could be wrong, because Silfab is leasing the building. They're not going to own the building. They're not going to own the real estate. But they're going to own a lot of equipment that they put into it. But I could be wrong, but it's not really important. This whole thing made the local news. It appeared in some of the papers and in Queen City News, and since this is video, we'll show you the TV.
For the first time in 5 months, Fort Mill neighbors spoke to county leaders to express concerns for a plan to bring a solar plant facility to their neighborhood.
I support conditional approval of Silfab Solar upon acceptance by DHEC.
It's also the number of jobs and people are going to be coming to this area. It sounds good, but the traffic up 21 is horrendous.
The solar company Silfab has a proposed agreement with the county that would create a 4% tax rate for 30 years. Despite more neighbors showing opposition on the proposal, the county voted 4-3 to pass the second reading. Allison Dilworth is among nearly 1,000 people in Fort Mill who signed a petition against the company over concerns about possible environmental risks.
We're building this company right next to not one, but 2 schools and an assisted living facility.
The company would bring about 800 jobs over 8 years with a salary range around $60,000. Silfab also plans to invest $150 million in the area and invest almost $17 million over 30 years in the school system. Reporting in York County, Shakir Speaks, Queen City News.
Good to see that they're paying a lot of attention to us down here. All of the controversial stuff makes it on Queen City News, if not some of the other TV stations. So now, let us hear from you out there in York County land. Now, this was not the public forum. The public forum is a chance for up to exactly 15 people to address the council on pretty much any topic. If you want to address the public forum, and most of the people talking, the public talking that we've seen in previous episodes of the show have been speaking in the public forum. And they have to sign up. Before you get to the meeting, there's a clipboard with a sign-up sheet. You get to speak for 2 minutes, and the council will not respond to you in any way. They may respond later when they get their own time to speak on things, but it's not a back and forth. So that is the public forum part of the meeting, and it's usually up front toward the beginning of the meeting. But the people you're going to hear from now, they are at a public hearing where anyone can speak in favor or in opposition. There's no limit to the number of people who can speak, and there's no time limit for them speaking. And to prove that, the first guy that you're going to see on the opposed side spoke for over 30 minutes all by himself. You're only going to see a little bit because he sounded impressive, but when I went to boil down his comments to something substantial, and he's a neighbor, he lives in my neighborhood at Carolina Orchards here. I don't know him, but he's here somewhere. When I went to boil down his comments to something like substantial, there really wasn't much there. Sorry, guy. Okay, anybody can speak for as long as they want. You got to be addressing the issue that's before the council. You can't just go up there and talk about something else. They will call for speakers who are opposed to the ordinance first. And then they will call for people who support the ordinance. And I actually talked about this to my progressive group here in Carolina Orchards. We had our meeting the next day, and many of them had been to the county council meeting, and they were all opposed to the plan because it's just down the road. They were upset at the idea that the folks opposed had to speak first, because that wouldn't give them a chance to rebut any of the comments that were made in support. Well, maybe they could, but maybe they'd have to wait until the next meeting, the third reading. And I don't know if there's going to be a public hearing for the third reading or not. I'm not sure how the public meeting thing is set up, because there was no public meeting. There was no, I've lost the words here. There was no public hearing for the first reading. And I don't know if there'll be one for the third reading. I'm still learning about this county council stuff. So there will always be the 15 public forum slots. So if they get there early, get signed up and talk about it then. Okay, but my devious mind says that if you hear something that screams for rebuttal, the council's going to be so mad at me. If you hear something that screams for rebuttal, and then when they say anyone else in support, because one person talks and then they say, is there anyone else who wants to speak in support? You just get up there as if you're going to speak in support and then say what you need to say. And maybe they'll have the sheriff escort you out. And see my earlier comments about people with guns. And you might make the news. I don't know. Sorry, Christy. Didn't mean to, set the rabble off on you like that, but it is kind of unfair. This is not a court. It's not a. You put people in the witness box and you have the two sides ask them questions and then redirect, Your Honor. No, it's people in opposition, people in support. Never the twain shall meet except sitting next to each other out there in the gallery. All right, here we go. These are the people. I get off on tangents. So these are the people who spoke in opposition to the plant. I've edited it down to about 7 minutes from over an hour. It is highly condensed. Like I say, the first guy went on for over 30 minutes by himself. But I tried to keep all of the cogent points and some valid questions. And I want to point out that you're going to hear no small amount of NIMBY FUD. That is not NIMBY, not in my backyard, FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, among the people who spoke in opposition. So here they are.
Council to hold a public hearing and approve second reading of an ordinance authorizing the execution and delivery of a fee in lieu of tax and incentive agreement by and between York County, South Carolina, the county, Silfab Solar Cells, SC, Inc., and Silfab Solar PV, SC, Inc., whereby such property will be subject to certain payments in lieu of ad valorem taxes. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak against?
My name is Joe Fazzari. I live in Carolina Orchards. Not necessarily against. My point is that accidents do happen, and you need to be aware of those. So what they're saying is that this agreement, if enacted, will provide an agreement with this company where they won't pay any taxes. In lieu of that, they will pay this fee. Now that fee can be, I think, between 4 and 6%. I'm hearing, the information I'm getting is you're looking at something like 4%. So it's about the best deal they can get. So if this was a credit rating, that means they have the best credit rating possible. So here's the deal. You got to invest $250 million. You got to bring in 125 employees, but you have 8 years to do it. I would look for, first of all, their financial statements. How strong of companies are they? Can they back up anything they claim? Surely they have provided copies of insurance policies that in case there's an accident, in case there's something goes wrong, and I want to live up to whatever commitments I have put in this fee agreement for which you are signing, that I am covered. I would assume the agreement calls for the ability within that 8 years for people to not do the agreement. Terminate it. Clean out the warehouse, take what you have. The deal's done, it didn't work, that's fine. Everybody walks away, we got a warehouse, the leaseor has his building back, it's nice and clean, he can do it again. Or they could just leave. They don't own any property, they're just leasing it. Well, the $250 million, remember, they've got 8 years to put it up. Who knows how much they have in there? And that's all property, plant, and equipment. They could put it on trucks and move it. Could they do that? Would they do that? I don't know. You've got records that tell you that this will not give rise to that potential liability. And we better make sure that whoever that is doesn't leave us with a warehouse full of witch's brew.
Bradford Smith, Middlebridge Court, Fort Mill. All the people in my precinct reached back and said, no, we don't want it. We don't know enough about it. We don't know if it's just going to be assembly, but it sounds like he said much more. So why do you need so much water to do that? That's a lot of water. It's also the number of jobs and people are going to be coming to this area. It sounds good, but the traffic up 21 is horrendous. We got 2 schools being built right next to this facility. There's too many unknowns and there's nothing tying them to this country. They're Canadian. So the easiest thing for this is to vote no.
Afternoon, council members. My name is Danielle Graham, Downman Court, Fort Mill. I'm presenting you with a petition against the 4% fee in lieu of taxation. We've collected 1,008 signatures by Regent Park and Orchard Park residents. The schools will be directly beside the 750,000 square foot building. Silfab Solar will be using toxic chemicals per the EPA's own guidelines and should not be in a densely populated area with the most vulnerable. Silfab cannot guarantee that the chemicals won't leach into the water table or populate or pollute the air. They can't guarantee that in the event of a fire, it won't spread to the schools that will be directly beside them.
I'm Brett Ellis. I live right there in Regent Park. But what mitigation plans have been developed by the county to mitigate any chemical spills? Highway 21 is a hot mess. What's going to happen if there's any type of accident or anything like that? What training has the fire department received? Is Silfab funding that training, or is it, taxpayers? Has the school district developed any type of evacuation plans? In the manufacturing process, bits of silica particles are released into the environment. That results in silicosis, which is a lung disease which can roll into cancer.
When you have a factory that is using cobalt, cadmium, lead, silicate are toxic as can be, and you're putting them near a school and a residential area. I live 1 mile from that place. What kind of smells and what kind of emissions will come out? Because even by Silfab's own publications, they cannot guarantee clean air. I don't know what kind of jobs you're thinking of, but I don't think it's worth it. And they can up and leave, and there's nothing you can do when they go back to Canada.
Thank you,
you
sir.
for your attention.
If you'll please state your name and give your address.
Todd Huey, Par 1 Court in Fort Mill.
The question here is, can we accept a manufacturing plan? Can you guarantee that the pollutants that come out of that factory will not affect the children? I want to make sure I have enough water if there's a fire in a building next to me, that I have pressure to put out that fire. Solar panels produce pollutants that produce cancer. You're going to put in a manufacturing plant in a residential area.
My name's Dave Phelps, Fort Mill. Solar power systems are not competitive against fossil fuels and nuclear, either at the residential level or at the bulk power generation level. Solar panels produce clean electricity when they're operating. Looked at on a life cycle basis, they are anything but environmentally friendly. Silfab maintains that as a responsible company, they will make every effort to safely dispose of or recycle liquid chemicals and airborne waste. This is good. We need to understand the chemicals, such as hydrofluoric acid, that will be used in washing processes, the liquid waste contaminants that have to be addressed, and these could include arsenic, cadmium, chromium, lead, mercury, and cyanide. There is always the danger of accidental spills and discharges.
Hey, my name is Dave Price. There's a disconnect between what you're being told and what the company itself has published in industry publications. Canadian-based Silfab's new elite panels use a proprietary X-pattern technology which would require in-house made cells, not just assembly.
I played that segment for my wife last night. She watched the whole thing, 7 minutes. Her question, are we going to smell it? She's thinking about the issues with the new Indy paper plant, other side of town from us. We fortunately do not smell new Indy up here on the north side of Fort Mill in the shadow of Charlotte. At least we don't smell it very often. The wind's got to be coming, way up from the south. And then we can get a little hint of, something's not quite right here. But we're just a mile southeast of the Silfab plant. With prevailing west winds, if they're stinky, we're going to know about it. Nobody in the opposition group asked about something that I thought of. So I'm going to offer it to you for next time. The plant in our neighborhood is right in the landing path for planes heading for the Charlotte airport. I mean, it's like right up there, a couple miles away. Constantly flying over here. They've soundproofed these houses like crazy. They're flying at about 3,000 to 4,000 feet. That's not that high. What if one of those jets has trouble and crashes into the plant? Fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Sowed right here on the YCDP TV podcast, YouTube show. You're welcome. Okay, again, we discussed this at our neighborhood progressive group the night after the council meeting. There were about 5 or 6 of us on the Zoom call. Everybody but me was adamantly opposed to the plant. The gist of that was, what if it blows up and we don't know what all is going to be in the air we have to breathe? So, not so cute about the stinking air now. We're the people that are supposed to look at the science. Now, we're the Democrats. We like science. We think solar power is a good thing. But sometimes fear, little NIMBY may kind of outweigh the progressive values, I guess. So, build it, but not right here. not in my backyard. It appears that nobody has much faith in our regulatory agencies like DHEC keeping us safe. We're the Democrats. Come on, guys. Next, the council heard from the people who support the plan. Almost no just neighborhood people anyplace, just business people. They're some of the folks that work for Silfab and some folks who work for county governments. They're going to get about 12 and a half minutes here. I was still pretty ruthless about cutting out the corporate rah-rah and sticking to details, but even so, Cindy couldn't watch all of this, and she bailed after about 3 minutes or so. So, see what you think.
Is there anyone here who wishes to speak in favor?
My name is Peter McVeigh. I live in Rock Hill. I was asked by Mr. Huckabee if I would do some research on Silfab in order to help him make a decision as to how he would vote. Doing Google and Bing, I found nothing negative about Silfab. I spoke with Eric Johnson, the Director of Public Works for Bellingham, Washington. He has had absolutely no problems with Silfab, either air or water-wise. He further stated that Silfab was an asset to the city, a good employer, and very much attuned to be a good neighbor. I spoke with Mr. Don Goldberg, Director of Economic Development for Bellingham. He's fully aware of Silfab's effort to come to York County. He's sorry that they don't have the ability to offer the space in either Bellingham or Burlington to Silfab, because they have been such good neighbors and good employers. He had nothing but praise for Silfab's dealing with the city and the manner in which they have done, as he put it, everything. In Burlington, I spoke with Mr. Greg Young, the city administrator. I spoke to Christina Kakafalakis in Mississauga, Ontario. I spoke with Hayden Jenkins, legislative assistant to a state representative, Joe Timmons, in Washington. I also spoke with Alex Rammel, who was a new state legislature. He lives within a half a mile of Silfab. Chief David Jennings of the Flint Hill Fire Department, which is the department that would be responsible for the Silfab location, has said, my department can easily handle anything that goes on at Silfab. We have the training.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor? Hey. Hold up. Remember what we said before. We're going to keep decorum.
My name's Dave Wilburn. I live in Rock Hill. And for the last 15 months, I've been working for a company that does low-level radioactive waste disposal. Why do I bring that up? I saw how tough South Carolina's Department of Health and Environmental Control, DHEC as we keep calling them, is with respect to managing activity in South Carolina. I've also watched with disgust the dumping of very inferior Chinese solar cells to dominate the U.S. market over the last 10 years or more. Silfab, by comparison, is an environmentally responsible Canadian company that wants to build an additional 1 gigawatt, that's 1,000 megawatts, that's like the size of a typical nuclear plant, of new solar panels for the U.S. market. They have been responsibly operating similar facilities to what is being proposed here at both the Burlington and the Bellingham facilities in Washington since 2018 and 2021, respectively. They have provided you all with the most incredible amount of data, about 1,000 pages, I think it amounted to, talking about all of the documents that are necessary to make sure that they're being responsible manufacturers of their product. All of the transportation, study, water usage, quality, and discharge flows. The electrical power requirements have been well defined. Power flow studies have been done. The internet requirements have done by York Electric Cooperative, and third-party traffic study has been done. Silfab has offered a no truck transport period, 5:30 to 7:30 a.m. and p.m. to minimize the impact. The chosen site for the facility was built recently and is currently vacant, generating no income. The estimated tax revenue from operation is cumulatively over a 30-year period about $21 million. That's revenue going to the county. The facility meets the light industrial zoning requirements as described in the York County Growth Plan. These silicon wafers, which form the solar panels, contain no heavy metals like cadmium or tellurium. Those are for solar panels that are the real thin things that you see. The only identified hazardous material in the assembled panels is trace amounts of lead from the soldered connections, which are further encapsulated in stabilizing polymers. The biggest issue is the air quality, and that is being completely reviewed by DHEC, still awaiting approval. But keep in mind, DHEC may test the air and the water at any time at their discretion. I recommend a clause to be added to either their tax reduction agreement or their lease to require reasonable restoration of the site for other use should they need to leave.
My name is David Bust. I'm a professional engineer, and I'm on the board for the Fort Mill Economic Partners, and I'm on the York County Regional Chamber of Commerce Board. The business community has heard about this applicant, and like a lot of people, we have questions. And we have experts in this state. We have important rules in this state. DHEC is the law of the land. This business is going to bring $17 million in tax revenue for York County, 800 new jobs that are above market, and $500 million in economic impact for our county.
My name is Mark Howey. I live at Fort Mill, South Carolina. I'm also Vice President of Community Development for York Electric Cooperative. After numerous engineering studies that we have done, our wholesale power suppliers have assured us they will have the capacity they need to serve this industry if it is approved.
I'm Trev McDonald. I'm the COO of Silfab Solar. What you've heard about our track record in Bellingham and Burlington is representative of our values. We're not going to make up whether we can have water or not. The water authority locally will tell us if we can do it. We're not going to say that we're going to get power all by ourselves. The power authority is going to tell us that we can do it. We're not going to say that we can magically fix traffic. No, the traffic engineers will tell us what we can or cannot do. We're not going to tell you that we can or cannot make clean water out of the processing we do. All the engineering done tells us how to make the clean water from the processing we're doing. And all the regulations by DHEC tells us how to make sure that that processing is monitored appropriately, maintained adequately, and measured and monitored. Our solar modules go on residential rooftops in the US. That's our primary and almost significantly sold market. When we talk about us locating a manufacturing facility near what we would consider a school zone, if our 800 employees wouldn't allow us to do it, it wouldn't make sense for us either, and we wouldn't come to council for us to do it. I've heard talk about recovering the site afterwards. We set foot in manufacturing in Ontario 12 years ago, and we've continued to grow the operation year over year. What we've shared in our project here is an operation forecast of growth year over year for the first 3 years to the maximum of 800 jobs. We set foot in Washington in 2018, and we grew that operation year over year. That led us to further expansion in Washington at a separate site where we set foot in 2021. That site is going through its third upgrade in capacity today. We're deploying more capital equipment today in that operation. We do have an open house that we're holding in about a week's time.
John Gossett, Lake Wiley Road, Lake Wiley, South Carolina. To the folks in Fort Mill, their concerns are valid. The problem is there's so much misinformation going around. Power, they're good. Water, got the letter from Rock Hill, they're good. Wastewater, got a letter from Rock Hill, they're good. I couldn't believe this, but this is South Carolina DOT. Has little or no adverse impact on local traffic at any time throughout the study period. I'm like, well, that's South Carolina DOT.
Folks, if we can remember to keep our comments.
They picked a site because they're not going to build a building. And that's not unique. I mean, that's a huge capital outlay. 800 permanent local direct jobs in York County at the facility that'll pay an average of $60,000. 9 paid holidays, medical insurance, remember that. Dental insurance, 401k, critical illness and disability insurance, vision insurance, potential for bonuses, tuition reimbursement, consistent work schedule, yearly salary increases. What happens if you say no? Do you really want to send a signal to all the other industries out there that are looking at York County as possibly relocating here? We got 4 great school districts. They produce outstanding young folks that graduate. Not everybody goes to college. Not everybody goes into a trade job. Some people would love to go into a manufacturing job.
My name is Renee Terreri. I am the head of HR for Silfab Solar. One of our values on the PACER is commitment. We are committed, not just to the people and our excellent product, but to the communities that we go into. I've already contacted all 3 high schools in Fort Mill. We will be giving them scholarships for children that are going into STEM. I've already met with York Technical College, and they have a plan to help us have apprenticeships. I also met with Lorraine from Roddey SC. They're going to help us with the training. We are hiring people direct. These are not temps. We have incentives that we pay based on safety, quality, excellence of the product, and production. And we have a day that every employee gets to volunteer anywhere they want in the community. We have a tuition reimbursement if you want to go back to school. For the next year, this is going to be my job. And we're going to build this company, and it's going to be fantastic. And we're going to do everything we can to be involved in the community.
Good evening. My name is Dave Oxendine of Rock Hill. But I want to tell you about this road that's in Rock Hill. It's actually in York County. It's called Burkett Road. That road is less than a half a mile long. There are 5 chemical companies on that road. One of those companies is the company that I manage, and we've been in York County for 37 years. This road is next to condos. It's right next to Rock Hill Manchester Soccer Complex. This is an industry that's regulated by DHEC, OSHA, HAZMAT, Department of Transportation. We understand our industry is safe, and it works under the auspice of these state and federal regulations which protect our community and protect our neighborhoods.
Dean Fell. I live just outside of Rock Hill in York County, and I'm the president and CEO of the York County Regional Chamber of Commerce. The Regional Chamber Government Relations Task Force convened, and as well as the Board of Directors, and did research, asked questions, held meetings with key officials and company representatives, concluding that this is exactly the type of project that we would like and we would support to come here to our state and to our county. Bringing solar technology back to the U.S., high-paying jobs in the top 10 to 30%, partnership opportunities with local education providers, supporting our overall workforce development efforts, green technology that's not just supported federally, but a necessary component of our environmental health and well-being. Lastly, on a personal note, I have a son who just started 8th grade. Saluda Trail Middle School is a STEAM school, and he's already identified several colleges where he plans to take a dual track in mathematics and engineering. This is the sort of job that can bring him back home.
So we are still waiting for that DHEC report on air quality. Is it going to tell Cindy whether the plant is going to be stinky? I hope so. The safety issues were, maybe not so glossed over, but covered within all the agencies say it's going to be okay. The other plants in Canada and Washington haven't had any problems, but nobody took to the lectern to say emphatically, the plant will be safe. The air and water will be good. With the caveat that, of course, nobody can guarantee that 100%. And I don't think we got a solid answer on what happens, who is responsible, who's going to pay if there is a catastrophe. But do we know that about all the other businesses and industries here in the county? I'm just asking. Okay, finally, here are the comments from the council members. This is the longest piece. They're going to get a little over 17 minutes of your time if you watch the whole thing. I wanted you to get a good feel for how each council member felt.
Do we have a new motion?
Motion to approve second reading.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I've had a lot of calls on this, and I get kind of tired of Americans thinking they love their modern way of living, but they don't want to admit what all it takes to have it. Hydrochloric acid. Most people don't know, and that's in solar panels, it's in your cell phones too. It's used in food processing. Corn syrup, soft drinks, chemical cookies, processing, crackers, oil, ketchup, well, cereals, metal acidation. processing. You know the number one item, though, that it's used for? Toilet bowl cleaner. We're going to lose our country if we do not wake up and start manufacturing and do what we need to do in this country. I approve of the second reading.
The value of these jobs, there's a lot of value in it. The track record, as you spoke about. I want to push for manufacturing. I agree in manufacturing. But the first thing that, as a council member, that I need to watch out for is the safety of my community. And I'm not saying this is not a safe company. Don't get me wrong. Great benefits, paid vacations, excellent. But if there's a underlying factor where there's any impact to the community from a health perspective, that washes it all out. That's why I've taken a slow walk on this thing, and I have not supported this. We're still waiting to get a final checkoff from DHAC on the air quality component. From a DHAC water quality standpoint, we can't get DHAC's checkoff on the water quality component until construction starts. And you push that against, we're building 2 new schools right up against this property. I have to take a pause on how would this possibly impact if there wasn't a release of air that went over to these 2 schools literally next door and impacted those kids. Maybe we don't see it next year, but 5 years down the road. I am not convinced at this point that I'm comfortable with this project. So tonight, I will be voting no against this, and I want to share my thoughts.
I like to see the audience feel, getting different views and perspectives. We've seen that quite a bit lately. And one of the things that I've tried to do over the last 12 and a half, 13 years is not err so much on the emotional side, but the informational side. Because a lot of times we send emails, we're emotional. A lot of times we make phone calls, we're emotional. But what we do have to use as council members is what's in front of us right now. We can get up here and speculate of the dangers, of the success, the failures. If we knew that going forward, we probably wouldn't be interested in doing council jobs. We'd probably be on Wall Street. Will DHEC regulate this to the point that it keeps us safe? Well, it's DHEC's job. It's not York County Council's job to make sure that there are things in place for air quality, water quality, sustainability. That's not what we're here to decide. We're not the experts. We don't do that. We can get all the financial data on a company. We can make sure they have all the insurances to protect whatever they're going to do, but that's still not our job. We're not considering a rezoning. Silfab can go in this location right now, start up their operation without York County giving them a thumbs up or thumbs down. The question here today is, do we want to consider a fee in lieu of tax agreement? If they meet certain criteria, they get certain benefits from the state. If they meet certain criteria, they get certain benefits from the county. We want to bring jobs. Several years ago, we was the top job producer in the country. And to look at what this company is going to put on the bottom line for our schools. I remember a time when people from Fort Mill was coming saying, we need money for schools. We can all say that we don't want something near our home. A second jail, landfills, things that we know our community needs, but nobody wants it near them. Cell phone towers. Everybody in this room has a cell phone. We complain about roads, but we don't want a rock quarry. I think we all take it serious. Some are still going to vote on the emotional. But when you look at all the boxes that Silfab checks, it's not right for us to speculate. We're not in the speculation business. They can't grow if they're having environmental issues. They can't grow if they're having employee health issues. If that was the case in some of their in their other facilities, that would be front and center right now. I'm all for it.
So I want to thank everybody in the room for being here tonight and sharing your perspective on both sides of this issue, all the telephone calls that we have fielded at this point, the emails, because if it's 5:57 or it's this topic with Silfab, your emails give us a chance to do our due diligence. The role of council on this issue really is to vote on the fee in lieu, a 4% concession tax. That's what we're here to vote on. I'm not sure how we got to the point of analyzing Silfab, the integrity of the company, the business functions of the company, but we have. You know, there are probably things I'm going to vote on between now and the end of my term that may cause you not to vote for me again. But I didn't run for election to get reelected. We became the fastest growing county because we understand our role here in York County. And part of our role is to attract the right types of manufacturers. Ralph Norman supports this project. I don't know how much of the state delegation supports our project, but I do believe the overwhelming majority of our state delegation supports this project. South County Department of Commerce referred this to us. York County Economic Development, led by David Swenson, made the recommendation for this project. County Management overwhelmingly supports this project. York County Regional Chamber of Commerce supports this project. After first reading, I called Pete McVeigh, a friend of mine, a retired DEA agent. I said, Pete, I want to know more about Silfab. I want you to ask every question you can ask, and I want you to confirm it, please, so I can feel more comfortable about my vote. Because what I'm hearing is I hear some people in favor, some people not in favor. I'm a conservative. And you won't believe the comments I've gotten from conservatives that have written checks to support me when I ran for election and voted for me. What has the due diligence proven to me? 12 to 15 trucks a day when the traffic study will allow up to 3,000 trucks a day. There's a blackout period, it was mentioned earlier. Between 5:30 and 7:30 a.m. and p.m., trucks cannot come in or out of the facility. Their shifts will change at 6:30 in the morning to avoid the worst part of our traffic. The water leaving the building, it's cleaner than the water that came in. That's what we're being told. We're told there's not an issue with the air quality. Schools aren't calling us saying we don't want this project. Schools are going to get half of $3.5 million a year. Maybe it's the money over the safety of children. I'm not sure, but I'm thinking they're not really concerned about this project. Not for the safety of the students. In Washington State, Silfab has a stellar reputation. We don't want that one to go to Chester County, to Gaston County, to Mecklenburg County. We want them here in York County. I do. York County is going to receive 2 specific tax payments. The building, there's an owner of the building. They're paying right now $2.1 million of property taxes on that building right now. And Silfab estimated is going to pay $1.4 million a year, $3.5 million total a year, and the Fort Mill School District is going to get half of that money. Because those of you that don't know own businesses, it's hard for you to understand this, but 50% of the property taxes we pay for the businesses we own go to the school districts. We talked about misinformation. You know, in the beginning, I thought this was a chemical plant too, so I went and researched chemical plants. So we got over 25 chemical plants in York County. 13 of those are within 1 mile of a school. Did you know that? I am 100% comfortable to vote yes on the second reading, and unless I learn something else between now and the third reading, I'm going to be voting yes for a third reading because I feel like it's the right thing to do. No other reason.
We've all heard a massive amount of information today, and I thank everybody for coming out. I'm very passionate about this issue. Since I am the district representative for District 7, we are the bedroom community of Charlotte. That is what we are known for. But I guess now we're going to be known for the manufacturing community of York County. Truly, there has been a lot of misinformation, but it's because this project was not transparent in the beginning. We have been given this information in bits and pieces. Dirt started moving next to the building. They thought it was the building. No, it's the 2 schools. Then everybody's worried about the roads. Well, I'm trying to get the information out about the roads being expanded and when that's going to happen. One day, a TIA study. It was the Wednesday after Easter. Our guys in the county that does the roads, I asked them, how long do you do a TIA study for? And they informed me for a week, not during any holiday period and not when schools are out, not during the summer. Now we're going to talk about the employees. Carowinds They didn't have enough employees to cover the rides and keep them open. And Carowinds pays $22 an hour. And this, I'm going to quote, every step of the process to manufacture, and this is from Silfab, to manufacture the solar panels is fully automated, requiring limited human interaction. So I question how the company is going to ramp up with these 800 employees with this automatic approach. I don't know what the $7 million with the building is, but that's part of the deal. Everybody is concerned about companies doing business with China. We asked that question. Do you do business with China? Do you get any products from China? The answer was no, an affirmative no. I have stacks of invoices I printed out, shipments from China to the plant in the state of Washington. Maybe somebody can explain that to me, but it looks like there's a problem there. It's been said to me on numerous occasions, that is a distribution center. If something happened with Silfab or they left, you're going to have thousands of trucks in and out there every day. I went to community meetings. They have dealt with distribution for years and years and years with Ross. And they said, we know what we're getting with distribution. We don't know what we're getting with Silfab. We will take distribution every day of the year. We have not dealt with solar in this county, solar production. We don't know what will be the impact of the nature of this business. Who would have ever thought in a million years Maui would be burning? Accidents happen.
Hawaiian Electric now being accused of years of inaction leading up to the deadly fire. The risk of a utility system causing a wildfire ignition is significant.
And I just feel like this is not a good deal, not only for the taxpayers of York County, but my constituents.
Silfab has already been permitted. They are not just permitted by the state, they're permitted by York County to upfit a property that they're going to be renting. They have moved into York County. So we can have a whole lot of conversations about green space and roads and all of that, but my number one job is to look out for your tax dollars. In an area where real estate is at a premium, why would we offer a sale price where the highest and best use should get top dollar? So in my opinion, this is a toxic waste of taxpayer money. Out of an abundance of caution for both public safety, but mainly out of concern for taxpayers unnecessarily funding economic development in York County, I'm a no vote.
There are some points that I do want to make. First of all, thank you to all the citizens that have come out and expressed your concerns. It's important to me, and many of you have said, please listen to us. Please do your due diligence. No, there is no way to guarantee any result. All you can do is use your best judgment and do a lot of homework. The points that I think are really important are these. This is not vacant land. This is not something we can rezone. This property is a building on 58 acres, I believe, 178 truck bays in it. It's already there. It was there before they even applied to come here. This is not a rezoning. This zoning actually was decided 30 years ago. This is in an industrial park. So the property owner has a legal and a constitutional right to put any industrial use it wants in that property. And not only has the property been in industrial zoning for 30 years, earlier this year the council once again looked at the comprehensive plan and continued to put this property, unanimously continued to put that in an area to dedicate it for industrial and employment center use. So for 30 years, anybody who relocated here, any folks who chose to build around it, did that knowing what that zoning was, and it was reaffirmed again this year. Businesses who promised to come in here and invest $150 million with 800 jobs, they get a standard vanilla incentive package. This one doesn't have any SSRCs being given. There's no free taxes, no reimbursements are going to be given for the road, for the construction. They're not getting a reduced rate unless they actually deliver on all the conditions. Out of fairness and consistency, we need to consider this. And even with offering the minimal incentive, they're still going to pay the same tax rate that you and I do. And it's a lot. And from what I understand, it's about 1.8 million to the schools at a minimum. One of the other things that concerned me was traffic. And some folks were saying, we don't need the traffic. We can't avoid the traffic. This building has 178 truck bays. What we can do is try to figure out what is the best use of the property. What is the best thing we can put here? And I do have some concerns, but this could be a massive warehouse and distribution. It could be a chemical plant. It could be anything and not even come before us. I do believe from what we've seen in the traffic studies that this proposal will be less tractor trailer trucks, less impact to the roads, less overall traffic than the alternative. And it will be primarily employees, our neighbors, our residents who will have a job here, working on shifts such that you can help control the traffic patterns to some extent. When it comes to the environmental, obviously DHEC and EPA control these permits. This is conditional upon those items. So I do support second reading. This is second reading, we still have third reading. I don't like how the information was submitted out to the community first. I would like for management and legal to look into the liability issues that were raised here tonight. Is there anything else that can be done, bonding or insurance requirements, to address the liability issues? I want to address the indemnity question that was raised, any clawbacks and incentives for any violations. I do think we need to look into that, and I would like to have that information before third reading. So all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Opposed.
Motion carries 4-3.
When all is said and done, and usually a lot more is said than done, did anybody change their mind? Well, one person did that we know of. Darlene Love voted for the ordinance at the first reading back in March, and then the vote was 5-2 in favor. This time, she voted against the ordinance and changed the ratio to 4-3. Keeping in mind that this vote is not on whether or not there will be a plant, but are we going to give them this payment in lieu of tax benefit, I'm not sure what an eventual no vote would even mean. Somebody said they could build it anyway. Can they? Would they? I don't know. Do you want to know what I think? Okay, I'm going to tell you anyway. Not that it matters. I think I agree with Watts Huckabee. If the air quality report comes back okay, it's not going to be stinky, right? If it's not going to be stinky and they clear up the questions about liability, well, then go for it. Company's got a good track record. Nobody's been able to dig up any dirt. No public complaints about the current plants in Canada and Washington State. Christy Cox made a good point about the area being zoned industrial for 30 years and just reaffirming that zoning earlier this year. So nobody asked why they approved building a couple of schools next to that industrial zoning. And everybody's hollering, but the schools. I'm concerned about the schools, but were we thinking about that? Checking the zoning? Oh, it was just a distribution warehouse. Yeah, there's going to be hundreds and hundreds of trucks rolling down the roads near the schools, but we're not worried about that. I wasn't there. I didn't speak. I get my chance here. I see many of my neighbors getting all NIMBY about it. I can understand that. Fear of the unknown is a strong motivator. Republicans have been playing that card forever. So have some Democrats. Okay, but for me, finally, it's not going to be stinky, right? Okay. That is it for this episode of YCDP TV. And as the title slowly covers my face, I will say thanks for watching. See you next time. Over and out. In the north end of Fort Mill, South Carolina, on the buckle of the Bible Belt, the foot of Mount, no, try this again.